Hello, my name is Aaron Cavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, in this edition of PostBurnout.com interviews, we have a returning guest in the form of Rachel Walsh, who's professionally known anonymously as Rachel. We spoke with Rachel last year when her single No Returns policy came out in October. Since then, Rachel has packed up her life as a school teacher in Kildare to move to Chicago, where she's currently giving music a full-time chance for a year. The beginning of this new chapter in Rachel's life is documented with her new single, We Didn't Call It Love, which is her first single to be released since No Returns policy last year. We discussed the single and the move, and we also discussed how Rachel finds the music scene differs there from back home, her going away show at Whelan's upstairs, the American reception to the expansion of what can be classified as Irish music, how living away from home has freed her up to get more open in her songs, working with producer Stuart Gray for the first time and how this changed her sound, and much more. Hi.
Hello.
Hey Rachel, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
I'm grand, how are you been?
Good, good.
It's really nice to talk with you again. I guess like the first thing I was just gonna ask quite simply is how's Chicago?
Chicago is great. I've just landed here. I'm only here about a week today, so I'm settling in and trying to come to terms with the fact that this is my new home now for the next
Yeah.
year. So, yeah, no, it's really exciting.
Yeah, actually, because I was re-listening to our previous interview, and you were mentioning in that your brother lives in Chicago. Is he still there? Like, are you still seeing him now? Or
Yeah, he is. So last year, both of us came to Chicago for the summer. He came over here in May, I came over here in July, and we both have US citizenship through our mom. So that's why we're so lucky to be able to stay here and work here. But he had a plan to come home to Ireland at the end of summer, and that never happened. He stayed ever since
yeah,
last May. So when I got to see him last week at the airport, that was the first time I had seen him in 6 months because he was home at Christmas. But yeah, it's great that we can be together now and we're going living together come August. So
oh,
yeah, it's
cool.
good to be back. Yeah, yeah.
What are you doing over there for the year? If you don't mind me asking.
So, well, I actually took the year out to focus on music and gigging because I just felt like when I was at home in Ireland and I was primary school teaching, I loved that, but I was always getting pulled towards music and shows and writing. That's just where my main passion is. So I decided that I always wanted to move to America anyways, but if I'm going to do that, I'm going to follow my heart with music as well because I just feel like there's so many opportunities here in America that I could go teaching, but like might as well do something different and come back to teaching, when I'm
Yeah.
in Ireland. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I also in our previous interview, you were mentioning how like you'd already by that time had gigged around, I think Boston and Chicago. You'd done like kind of Irish pubs and sort of we're kind of offering a new sense of what kind of Irish music could be. As we were mentioning in that interview, we were talking about kind of like there's a traditional set of what Irish music is, and although that still exists, I mean, there's a greater diversity of it now of what Irish music can be. Do you find that people over there are kind of receptive to that, or do you think they just want to hear kind of the same songs that they know?
Yeah, it depends on the bar that you go to. I mean, I'm gigging in a bar called Celtic Crossing at the moment, and I also gigged in it last summer. And the songs that people request are, the typical Grace and Raglan Road, and the ones.
Yeah,
And I have no problem playing those because I really like playing them, as well. But I also get a lot of requests to do just pop music too, and like I think that they're open to the idea that like it's not all going to be Irish traditional music for 3 hours straight in a bar.
yeah,
It's important to like play to the crowd too. If I've got young people in there, then we'll probably do a lot of pop songs too, with Irish influences and stuff. But it's really up to myself and I try and take as many requests then as I can throughout the night. But I think they are open to it. Yeah.
Actually, I was just wondering as you were mentioning that, I was thinking, do you when you kind of like incorporate some of the traditional songs into your set list, do you try and add your twists onto them, or do you try to play them as they were?
No, I always add my own twist onto
Yeah.
them. Yeah, I do. And like the a lot of the traditional songs that you sing are kind of sang by males a lot of the time as well. So like
Mhm.
naturally it's going to be different. But like I do add my own ornamentation and twists onto it. And of course I'm always playing with the keyboard. So it kind of sometimes those songs can turn into more of a ballad than anything when I've got keys.
Yeah. How do you
Yeah.
find kind of the music scene over there kind of differs to here in Ireland? Because you know, I've never been to Chicago myself, and I can well, my knowledge of it is from, you know, the show The Bear. That's my extent of my
Yeah.
knowledge of Chicago. So I
Yeah.
was wondering, like, how do you find the kind of music scene in Chicago compared to here? Like, how do the two differ? I guess what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
It's really exciting over here. Like, musicians are very open to connecting with each other here, as in, like, I could walk into a bar here and get talking to a guitarist or a bassist or a drummer who might want you to do female lead in their band for another gig. And, you know, there are so many spots, like you only have to walk 5 meters and you're onto a new bar or a
Yeah.
new music spot. And you can hear the music on the street when you're in downtown Chicago from all the different bars. And I just love that no matter where you go, you're always going to find something. And like there's so many different genres here too. Like they really focus on jazz is a big one over here. A little bit like Ireland, you have a lot of buskers on the street as well.
Hmm.
So in downtown, wherever you're going, you're always going to be hearing jazz music or pop music. Um, I just love how open they are to all different types of genres of music here. And it's exciting to be able to get to work with people of different backgrounds and cultures and experiences and learn more about their music too and bring my own Irish experience to it as well.
Yeah, no, it seems like a real great melting pot in that sense. Yeah, I was wondering, like, do you find, because obviously, I mean, your music is very eclectic. You know, you try and like, you know, we're talking about doing pop music, but I mean, I think the definition of pop music has really expanded a lot lately, and is very encompassing of a lot of new ideas. And I include your music in that too. I mean, each song really does seem to each song does seem distinctive from the previous song, as we're going to get onto with your new
Yeah.
track as well. But I was just wondering, like, kind of as you mentioned there, walking through the downtown and you know, just kind of hearing all this different music, do you find it seeping into your brain and kind of influencing your direction? And are you kind of open to um kind of like what the next track is going to be, or do you kind of have it like a vision set in your head already, or how's that kind of work, I guess?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I feel like I am already being influenced by the different sounds that I'm hearing and also just getting to work with different people. So I did have a songwriting session within a couple of days of moving over here, based on like inspiration from even just the last couple of days. And that was working with another Irish artist as well, Chris O'Shea, who's supported me a couple of times in Ireland. So he's over here. He might do a couple of gigs with me out here as well. But we had a session together and it went really well. And I feel like we are getting influenced by the sounds around us. But what was the second part of your question?
Yeah, no, I was just kind of asking because, like, obviously you have the diversity of your own music. Do you find that uh, you have your next track planned ahead? Like, how far ahead, I guess,
Oh,
is what I'm
yeah.
trying to say, is your next track, and versus how much of it is kind of do you adapt based on kind of
Yeah.
new inspirations?
Yeah, I mean, I always struggle with this because I write so much music that I'm sitting on a bank of it there that hasn't been released.
Yeah.
And what happens with me is, I could be working on something for like 2 years and then I start writing new stuff because I'm at a different place in my life where maybe that music doesn't apply to how I feel anymore. And I'd never like to release stuff that doesn't represent where I am at the time. And that can be damaging because then you're letting all this other music that probably is just as good, but you're letting it go because you don't feel like you match with it. But that's not to say that I won't eventually release that stuff. It's just I don't really relate to it anymore. So in terms of what's coming next for me, I feel like it's all going to be new and based on like from here on out, this next new chapter. Because when I wrote Would You Be Happier last summer, that really did reflect where I was. And we did the music video in Chicago. And it was kind of asking myself the question as well, like, is this the next step for you? Would you be happier here? And, upon having a whole year to reflect on that and that idea, like, this is where I have ended up and this is where I am happiest. So I feel like all the music that comes from here is going to be representative in the next EP to come.
That's perfect. I mean, like, because obviously, you have obviously when you kind of like move to a new place, or even if you're in a place temporarily, I do think geography has a huge impact on
It
creative
does.
endeavors in a lot of ways. And in such a way, I mean, you can kind of, I think when you're living in the same place, it's hard to kind of think about the chapters in your life in a lot of ways. Like, a lot of it can feel like it's bleeding over. And it's not really until you kind of get the perspective away from you, like, oh, I guess that was that period of my life, that was that period of my life.
Yeah.
But obviously, I mean, when you're moving, I mean, it seems like such a distinctive kind of identifier as a new period.
New
Um,
chapter. Yeah.
yeah. So does that make
Mhm.
it easier then to kind of like disregard the songs that you're not that no longer represent where you are?
A little bit, yeah. And I think that when I had my last show in Ireland in Whelan's before I left, I kind of was using that as a closing chapter for that period of music. I felt like if I didn't share that before I left, then nobody will hear like, the creativity of that maybe last 2 years. So it was really, really, really nice to be able to get a band together and actually put all that music in a show, because it really just kind of closed off that chapter for me. And now, like, next time I come home and do a show in Ireland, hopefully I'll have like a bunch of new music. Yeah.
Actually, we're talking about kind of the kind of freshness of starting over in terms of moving to a new place. But I'm also wondering, just for the sake of balance, what were the trepidations? Because I mean, obviously there is a sense of security in the sense that you have built up a fan base. There are people who are familiar with you, you have musicians that you work with. When you kind of start a fresh slate, what are kind of what were some of your trepidations in terms of continuing the musical project in Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I was really, really sad to have to leave something that I felt was going in a good direction with my group and with my band at home. Like, I would do 10 more shows with them if I could before I
Yeah.
left. They're a great, great group of people. So it is difficult in that sense because I feel like I am starting, completely fresh over here and I don't know anybody. But with that, I feel like you could look at it as it is really exciting too, because you just never know who you're going to meet out here. And I've said to my band at home, like any of them that want to come over when I have my gig set up properly over here, that they could maybe gig over here too. But at the moment, I'm actually using like a lot of social media to reach out to different musicians. And Facebook is a really good one for that because there's just like a Chicago music network and people reach out to each other saying they're looking for singers or keyboardists or whatever. So I have reached out to a couple of people on there and got into some groups for gigs that are coming up. Yeah.
That's cool that you're just there like a week and already you've got the kind of the ball in motion, you know?
Oh yeah, I landed on Friday and started gigging on Saturday. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
The
yeah.
jet
So
lag
we're
hadn't
straight
worn
in.
off yet.
It hadn't even worn off at that point. Yeah,
The interesting
yeah,
thing too about Chicago is like geographically where it's situated. I mean, there's so many like states nearby that you could potentially drive to for an evening and come back. And yeah, I
yes,
believe like I talked to another artist from Chicago and they were saying like part of the reason they moved sorry, not from Chicago, they moved to Chicago, and the reason they moved there was actually just because it was so convenient in terms of driving from place to place, and going to do shows. Have you thought about doing shows now that you're there out of state, or is it just
yeah,
like primarily building everything up in Chicago or even Illinois in general.
yeah.
How's that kind of trajectory for you, I guess, or what's your plan in that sense?
Yeah, well, my plan is to mainly stick with Chicago because that's where I'm going to be living for the next year. But I do think that I would like to get to Nashville because it isn't too far away. You can take a plane journey, I think, an hour or two, to get there. And obviously, that's like a music hub, and to be so close to that, I think it would be a shame not to visit it. So I definitely plan, hopefully by the end of the summer, to get out there. And I'm nearly afraid to go there because I'm afraid that I might like it too much and not want to come back. But yeah, no, I'm excited to make a trip there, hopefully.
I've talked to artists who live in Nashville too, and all of them say that everyone is skilled musician. Like everyone like plays music. Like it's very rare to find someone who's not a musician there, but there's no
Yeah.
like cutthroat mentality whatsoever. Like everyone's very accommodating. Everyone's trying to give each other a leg up and help each other, and I think that's like really nice. It seems from a musician's perspective, it seems almost like paradise.
I totally agree. I just feel like ever since I've come out here, like people are only, they're only trying to help you and trying to get you gigs or, and a lot of places that I've contacted will take me on for a year without even having me do one gig in a place. They're like, yeah, we're happy to set you up with the schedule for the year. And I just feel like really at home you would probably have to be gigging in a bar for a long time to get residency, being offered that over here mainly just because you're Irish, because you're a musician. They might have looked up a couple of my songs or whatever, but I just feel like so grateful that they're open to taking somebody on, pretty much on the spot straight away. That's working out really well for me, obviously, because I didn't have a huge like major set plan, and it's the first time in my life that I don't have a plan. So that was a little bit scary for me to make this jump, but things are starting to fall into place already. So hopefully
Yeah,
it keeps
and
going
like I said, you've
that way.
only been there a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before we go on to your new single, I actually just want to talk about just before we move on, I just wanted to talk about something that you were mentioning there, which is you mentioned that you don't really like to kind of if a song's been sort of in your backlog and it's no longer relevant to you, you don't really plan on releasing it. I was wondering when you're kind of like playing songs that people know and that people associate you with, that may no longer be relevant to you, do those songs like still resonate in any way, or does it just feel like karaoke?
Um, there
Not
are
to be
parts of
cynical,
it.
sorry.
No, no, definitely. No, definitely there are parts of it. I mean, I wrote the songs. So, obviously I'm going to relate to them or remember that time, but I'm kind of the person that like I can accept that that's where I was at that time. And I'm always worried that people think that I still feel that way about a certain situation, or that you just feel like maybe a crowd aren't going to be receptive to the fact that yeah, I don't feel like that anymore. Or I suppose every musician feels like that about their older music, but I really think that since my first release to where I am now, you can see the maturity and how I've grown over the last couple of years. In my relationships with people too, I feel like that my songs are really reflective of how things have matured and maybe how I view myself as well. Um, yeah.
Actually, one other thing that's kind of interesting too about moving is that I don't know if you feel this way. It's just what came to my head, but I was wondering, like, sometimes when you're writing very personal music, especially in a country that's like as relatively small as Ireland, is that people might know who you're singing about or what the topic is, or especially friends or family, they might know like what it is you're referencing. But I suppose when you're in a place where there isn't that level of familiarity, it kind of gives you it might give you a bit of perception to kind of sing about things that are even more emotionally vulnerable because you don't feel you have the scrutiny of home, if that makes sense. I don't know if you
That's
feel that way
really,
at all.
yeah, that's a really good point. I actually do agree with you. I feel like you have a little bit more freedom over here I mean, nobody knows who I am here. They don't
Yeah.
know my story. They don't know who I know or what my relationships have been or are like. So it's definitely more freeing, I think. Yeah.
And then this brings on to your new single then that's coming out. It's We Didn't Call It Love. I was very interested about this song because it actually kind of begins with I couldn't quite make out what they were saying, but kind of male vocals at the beginning too. I was wondering if maybe you could talk a bit about what the song is actually about thematically.
Yeah. Well, the part that you're talking about at the beginning is a part that I feature in almost all of my songs, but I don't know if many people catch it, is that I do like to put voice notes into songs.
Yeah.
So whatever the song is, relating to. I like to have something from that period of time that represents like what the song is or the theme of the song. So We Didn't Call It Love is about, it's kind of about having doubt in a relationship and maybe not feeling like, you know, you want to admit your feelings to somebody. And it talks about a lot of the doubts that are in that and the struggles with that. But ultimately I feel like all of my songs are heartbreaker songs with a happier upbeat, and I feel like this song is so energetic that it always like washes out the deeper meaning of the song.
Yeah.
So it's like distracting from the fact that it might be more of like a sad song. But no, I'm excited for this one. I feel like it's very different to what I've released before.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually one thing I took note of was I don't know, maybe I'm just reading too much into it because I know, but was any of the song motivated by the fact that you knew you were going to be moving? Because one of the lines that resonated with me with that context in mind was give me one more kiss before you go. Again, it kind of reminds me of a song like I'm leaving on a jet plane or something like that, where it just feels like, there's that sense of finality, which I guess doesn't really exist anymore because the world is so shrunk that like if someone moves away, it doesn't have the finality that maybe it did when that song was released. Yeah, I was wondering like what's that on your mind at all when it came to releasing this song, or is that just my own bias
Of
seeping in?
course. No, no, you've hit the nail on the head with that one, actually. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, uh, moving country has been on my mind for the last year, so it's kind of seeped into my writing a lot. And it's not just me who's moving away at the moment. I feel like a lot of people my age are going through that. And I was trying to think of a theme that would suit best for people in their 20s. Like relationships can be difficult to navigate when people want to do different things and go different places. As you said, like the world is really small and there is hope for people to still stay in contact when they're away, but it is that little bit more difficult. And a fear that you might lose somebody during that time is kind of a taint put over something that's supposed to be a really exciting step in your life. So yeah, you've definitely hit the nail on the head with that. Yeah.
And also, you're working with a new producer on this, yeah, as you mentioned, Stuart Gray. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering, how did that kind of collaboration come about? And as you mentioned, like I did notice, it sounds very different from your previous releases. With the kind of music you're doing, how kind of integral is the producer you're working with to the sound you achieve?
Yeah. Um, I started working with Stu for this song, and it's come at a difficult time because I found somebody that I worked, really, really well with. We clicked, and he didn't force his own like some producers that you work with will force their own style onto your
Right.
music. But I think the key thing with the producer is to find somebody who allows you, to have your sound the way that you want it. And with this song, I feel like it's probably the most me that I've ever sounded and the most of my influence that I've had on a track. And that's not to say that Stu didn't put his own like instrumentation into it, but he really just got it. He really got the sound that I wanted from the start. And the key is with that too, is that like I mightn't have had to explicitly say or state anything like do this or do that. He just knew. So his studio is called Jealous Town Studios and it's based in Meath. And because I was living in Kildare for the last 2 years, I was just looking to get a producer that was close in my area that I could go to, especially like after school,
Yeah.
to head over to the studio in the evening. And we were able to get the song together really quickly in order to get one out before I leave. So unfortunately, I won't be able to work with Stu while I'm over here. But at the same time, like as COVID has shown most artists, there could be an element of I record a little bit over here, send it over and back. Like I don't think it's going to be too hard to do that when you have your own recording equipment over here as well. So we'll see. We'll see how it
Yeah.
goes. Yeah.
And one final thing I wanted to ask you is actually, sorry, just to be clear, what's the release date for the single? I didn't have that down.
Yeah, it's coming out on the 16th of August.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Just for my own record.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
we're kind of talking about, the kind of the diversity in the kind of music scene in Chicago. I was wondering, does that give you kind of the idea to potentially experiment with different clubs and different musicians and kind of see really what it offers? Because I think that kind of like I think like the different kind of clubs you can kind of play can kind of show your versatility and your range if you're able to attract audiences who go to different types of clubs and stuff. Like I said, I've never been to Chicago, so I'm not like
Yeah,
familiar firsthand or anything. But
yeah,
do you find like the idea of kind of like trying different places would be kind of what you're looking to do?
yes. Absolutely, because the Irish bar scene is so fun, and obviously you get to meet a lot of like-minded people there. But really, the reason that I'm coming here is to try all the different types of scenes. So I'm hoping that with more of a band setup, that I could be a female lead in a band and be working, doing like pop gigs and cover gigs, and there's a lot of different opportunities to do that over here, loads of different bars. So I'm excited to see what they have to offer. But again, like Facebook is so good for reaching out with people. So I have two different bands at the moment that are searching for a female lead singer. So I feel like that could lead to exciting things.
Perfect. I really look forward to everything you have coming up, Rachel. I have no doubt it's gonna be great. I was
Thank you.
wondering, do you have anything you'd like to add or plug or anything? Yeah,
Yeah, well, obviously the song is coming out on the 16th of August. We're working towards doing a lot of promo work over here. I'm working with a company called Blue Door Studios that are going to do my second music video based in Chicago. So we're working on that and planning it at the moment. But just I suppose to keep an eye out for that on social media. It will be coming out a little bit after the single release.
perfect. Keep your ear to the ground. Thanks very
Yes.
much, Rachel. It's really nice talking with you again. And
Thank
yeah, I
you.
was at that gig as you mentioned, the one in Whelan's upstairs, and it was really great. So yeah, I think if there's any Chicago residents listening to this, check out Rachel if you see her around.
Thank you so much. And it was great to finally get you at a gig as well, or
Yeah,
to meet
yeah,
you at a gig, because you've been to two now.
yeah.
But it's lovely to meet you. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much for your time, Rachel.
Yeah,
It's really
of
nice to
course.
talk to you again. And
Thank
anytime you
you.
want to do, let me know.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Erin.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.